Good morning, my name is Dr. Davino. I'm the Superintendent of Schools here in Vernon, and this is my favorite time of year because I get the opportunity to talk to some of our most accomplished students. So with me today, I have Wesley Sanders, who's our valedictorian, and Anmarie Kaczor, who's another one of our class of 22 graduates, and they have such unique stories that I really wanted to feature the two of them together. So if you're not a music parent, you should still watch this podcast, right? Because one of the things we'll talk about are how do we get to a really high performance level? What are the things that students have to do to get to a high level of performance? And that can be applied in music or academics or athletics. And those are really important lessons for our families and for our younger students. So if you have people at home or children who are at Glen Meadow or at Lounsbury Hollow and are considering the competitive nature that happens when you get to senior year, these are all really, really important things that people need to know about. So let's start with Anmarie. So you are a trombone player, right? What made you choose trombone?
Well, my mom is a music teacher. She teaches at West Milford.
Okay.
And so she kind of knew all the do's and don'ts of picking an instrument, and she wanted me to choose a brass instrument. She wanted me to be woodwind.
Okay.
So
is she a brass player?
She's a tuba player.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
So what she did, she took me to her school and she had me try all the different types of instruments. And I originally actually wanted to play trumpet, but I got to it and I couldn't even make a sound out of it. So
it's that tiny mouthpiece.
Yeah, it's such a tiny mouthpiece, and I couldn't do it, and I was like, no. So I ended up picking the trombone after trying a couple different low bass instruments, and best decision of my life.
And she didn't tell you to play French horn?
No.
And you know why I asked that, right? I mean, for many students, right, for those of you who don't know at home, French horns are coveted, right? It's very hard to find musicians who play French horn as well as oboe or bassoon, right? Some of the double reeds. These are the instruments that are really hard to find in band and orchestra. So you chose to play trombone, and you were always involved in the bands and the things here in the schools?
Yes.
For as long back as you can remember?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think, so what do you most enjoy about being part of an ensemble?
I like the sense of community that it has. Especially coming from me. I'm a bit of a shy person. I'm not very sociable. But what I love about band is that everyone there is like family.
Yeah, so important, right? Yeah, so Wesley, let's talk a little bit about your primary instrument, also a brass instrument, and you're a tuba player. How did you choose tuba?
Well, the story that my mom always tells me is that when I was really, really little, we had a bunch of these Richard Scarry children's books.
Okay.
And there was one that I really loved about a tuba player. He had a bunch of stuff stuck in his tuba, and he couldn't get it to play.
Yes.
So he blew really, really hard, and then all the stuff blew out. And apparently I really loved that book so much that I chose to play the tuba.
Oh, I love that story. Do you remember that as a kid?
I don't remember that. That's what my mom tells me.
I love that. So, but playing tuba, I mean, it's a really large instrument, right? So when did you start playing?
Well, I started on euphonium in 4th grade because I would not be able to hold or have the air to play a tuba back at that age. But then I switched over to tuba in middle school.
Yes, and the band directors were probably thrilled, right?
Yes.
Yes, because it's very hard to find a tuba player. You know, as I was thinking last night at Jazz at the Flats, you know, a wonderful, wonderful performance by Jazz Express in the middle school. And I was thinking of how the Barry sax just really rounded out the sound of the sax section, just like bass trombone does, right, in the brass section. So all of these instruments are so important to the balance of the orchestra or the band. So what are the your favorite things about being an instrumentalist?
I would have to say the same thing as Anmarie. It's sort of like the cooperation and the community that develops, because like in a band or in an orchestra or any musical group, you're all like working together. Like it's sort of like a non-verbal form of communication where you're listening to other people around you, responding to that. And then that really carries over to the social plane where you become really, really close friends with all of your fellow musicians.
I think that's wonderful. And now both of you are also really accomplished musicians. So for the folks at home, Anmarie and Wesley are not only two of our outstanding musicians, they're also region band and all-state musicians. And not every school has the opportunity to say they have all-state musicians at all. Many students try out for region band, not all of them make it, right? And we've had region band musicians before here in Vernon, and we're always very proud of that. We don't always have all-state musicians. So let's talk a little bit about what that's like. How do you prepare for an audition at that caliber? I mean, that means that you are the best in the state on your respective instruments. So congratulations to you both. So Anmarie, talk a little bit maybe about preparation and getting ready for an audition of that caliber.
Okay, so getting ready for a big audition is kind of a long process. What I do is we figure out the piece I have to play, because we play the same piece for area, region, and all-state band. So we figure that out in the summertime before the year starts, and I start practicing it then.
Wow.
And I work with my teacher weekly. We have one lesson a week, and it's for about an hour, and I just practice that piece until I can't play it anymore.
To the point where it's like memorized almost,
Yeah,
right?
almost.
Even down to articulation and dynamics and everything else, right?
Yeah.
Really intense. What about for you, Wesley? Anything that works for you as far as that process goes?
Yeah, it's that same process of getting the solo that they publish it in the summer, and we work on that until the auditions in like January.
Wow.
And on top of that, we have to work on scales in each of the 12 different keys. And then also a big part of the audition is sight reading, where you look at a piece of music for maybe 30 seconds that you haven't seen before, and then you have to play it for the judges. So the way that I tend to work on that, and the way that my private teacher has me work on it, is that she gives me a book filled with a bunch of like really short, like 20-second
Oh, that's great.
clips of music, and has me look at one for 30 seconds, then play it, then critique what I did right, what I did wrong, and sort of practicing and getting ready for all the parts of the audition.
That's a great strategy. So for the folks at home, if you're listening and you're not a musician, there's some really, really important things that Anmarie and Wesley are talking about that can be applied to anything, right? If you're working on a long-term project for school, if you have an assignment or something that's due at the end of the marking period, setting these mini benchmarks, right, these little goals of like working on something every week for a period of time is a really important strategy. Chunking the information and only working on 12 bars or 8 bars or a chapter or whatever it happens to be are really, really good ways that you can increase your knowledge on something and your aptitude for something before you actually have to produce it, right? And that translates to academics as well. So Wesley, you're the valedictorian, so how do you balance everything, right? I mean, all-state band, lots of ensembles, and being first in your class.
A lot of time management is key because obviously there's a lot of homework that comes with like all the honors and AP classes. So sort of like planning that out, knowing which days of the week I'll have band rehearsals, say for like marching band, jazz band, and planning it so that I do a lot of the homework for that week on days where I don't have rehearsals.
Right.
And then also for the music aspect, chunking in some time to practice for those auditions in January, February.
Wow. So time management is really, really key, right? And I know, Anmarie, you're going to be a music major, right? Music education in the fall. And Fredonia University, is that correct?
SUNY Fredonia.
Okay, so, what is it about music ed that you're excited about?
I'm excited to have my own students because I know that music really changed my life, and to do that, many teachers and instructors and even my parents helped me along this journey and made me realize that music is the thing I really want to do. So having my own students and inspiring like that, it's just magical. I would really love to do it.
I love that you shared that. I think that's really great. And Wesley, I know you're headed to Princeton. Is that the choice? I know you had some big choices to make between Yale and Princeton, right? And I'm very, very happy for you. And what will be your major and minor at Princeton?
I'm going to be majoring in molecular biology and minoring in tuba performance.
Okay, so one of the things that is so remarkable about our students is that they do find their paths, right? Maybe you didn't know that coming into high school. You both had a love of music, but neither one of you maybe knew what was going to happen when you became seniors as opposed to when you started as freshmen. So the beautiful thing about Vernon High School, I think, is finding your path. One of the things we talked about was the great thing about music is you always have the opportunity to play, right? Even at my age, which is much older than the two of you, I can still pick up my saxophone and play when I want to because it brings me joy. So if you were going to give advice to students that are coming up to Vernon High School next year, maybe incoming 8th graders or people who are really excited about being sophomores, maybe they just had their freshman year, what are some things they should take advantage of here at the high school, or some things that maybe will help them in the next few years?
I guess I'll take this one. I would say if you're coming to the high school as a new student, really anything that you think might like slightly remotely interest you, I would say take advantage of all the opportunities that you can. Because you can't overbook yourself. The worst thing that could happen is you try something new, you say, maybe that's not for me, and then you move on trying other things until you find something that fits with you. That's really the great part about high school and also about college. You can try new things without really any repercussions if you don't really like it.
That's great advice. What about you, Anmarie?
Wesley took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say, take any opportunities that you can during high school. Anything you want to do, just try it.
Yeah.
And either you'll really enjoy it or maybe it's not for you, but just finding that one thing that really resonates with you, that's enough to say that your high school career is successful.
So for both of you, music resonated. So last question, kind of a trick question, but there's no wrong answers. Was there something you tried that wasn't for you, and what did you learn from it? Like a club or a sport or an activity or a class that just, you knew that you were not going to go into this field?
I don't think so. I think all of the things that I did in high school I ended up enjoying, as much as my schedule might not have liked that. I really enjoyed all of the clubs and activities I've been a part of at high school, and I don't regret joining any of them.
That's great. Anmarie, what about for you?
Me too. There's
Same
definitely classes and activities that I found more difficult than others.
Yeah, it can be challenging.
And the schedule was always so hectic, but I enjoyed everything in high school.
That's so great.
My high school experience was so amazing just because I took all these opportunities and I was in so many things that it just brings me a lot of joy.
That's so great. So for the parents at home and for our students at home, two of our wonderful, wonderful students, congratulations both to Anmarie and to Wesley. Really, really shining stars, just like the rest of the class of 22. We could not be more proud about where our students are headed. We can't wait to hear about your futures. Anmarie, if you're looking to come back and teach somewhere, see if there's an opening here in Vernon in a few years, right when you graduate, you never know. And we always love to have our Vernon graduates back here in the Vernon School District if we can. And for Wesley, can't wait to see what happens for you at Princeton. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.